Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to come see my session, and big thank you to the Cardo team for inviting me up here. Really excited to talk about the cool use case that we've built out in partnership with Cardo. But a little bit about me, I'm Claudia Chang, Product Operations Manager at Clear Channel Outdoor, where I manage our data partnerships and our data products. And what we're doing is really working to make out-of-home more addressable. And it's something that means a lot to me, coming from an industry expertise of working on marketing technologies and advertising technologies that really bridge the gap between offline and online activities and behaviors. All right, so a little bit about Clear Channel for those of you who may not know. So Clear Channel Outdoor is one of the largest media owners in the world of out-of-home. And out-of-home, for those who might not know, is really think about billboards, bus shelters, airports, anything you're consuming out of your home outside of the traditional way of seeing it on digital, whether you're looking at it on a website or you're looking at it on CTV or linear TV. Think about that in the context of out-of-home. So Clear Channel is in over 30 countries, and within the US alone, we have 70,000 displays across a number of different DMAs. And what we are able to do with that is we're able to reach 130 million Americans on a weekly basis. So pretty vast and expansive coverage of the US. And when really thinking about how our market coverage and all of that really matters, is everyone in this room has certainly passed by one of our inventory pieces before. And if you're thinking about it, you're walking through Times Square, you see this gigantic spectacular, or even for those of you who have flown into this conference and you've passed through one of the airports in the area. So Clear Channel Outdoor actually has exclusive advertising rights within JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark airports. So really thinking about out-of-home as this immersive advertising experience where everyone is able to view it in a very immersive and very visible way. All right. So when thinking about out-of-home, you would think that the vast coverage that we have is really the value that we bring to our customers, because obviously with all these advertisers that we've grown up with, Coca-Cola or anything like that, where we have memories growing up of seeing the out-of-home and billboards out there in the real world and being excited about seeing your favorite brands out there. The value that we bring is not only just the coverage that we have, it's also thinking about the audiences that we're able to bring to our advertisers. So it's really about understanding who is actually looking at the billboards. Not only that, what we have to do as Clear Channel and as a data products team in and of Clear Channel is really understand the behaviors that are associated with all the different audiences that are passing through all of our assets. So really a key component of this that's really fundamental to what we are building out is mobile location data. And we work with a number of industry-leading and really fantastic location data providers in this space who really focus on privacy and data compliance and governance, persistency in data, because it's also important that we're able to observe behaviors pretty frequently and not just once a month. And that leads into, we also want to make sure that we're getting compliant data of those who are opted in to share their location. So that's a really key part of it. So what I want to take you through is just some visual examples of what our inventory looks like. And really think about yourselves in front of each of these different assets. So this kind of covers between our airports assets, our outdoor assets, our digital inventory, our static inventory. Everyone has definitely seen something like this in the real world, whether you're going through the terminal to catch your flight, or you're walking through, again, Times Square, you're seeing this giant spectacular that's catching your eye. And when you're thinking about all of this, what we want you as the consumer to really understand is the impact of that brand and to notice. But what we're thinking about as a data products team is how are we able to understand who is viewing what when we have so many different types of inventory up here. And when we're thinking about all these different types of inventory, what we know as Clear Channel, as the media owner, is we know where each of these is placed in the real world. So there are three really important things that we have within our portfolio that we understand. So for every single one of these boards, we know exactly where it's located, and that's derived through the latitude and longitude. We also know the direction facing of all of these boards. So if one of these is north facing or northwest facing, that's an attribute that we're counting as part of the board metrics. The other thing we understand is there are a couple of examples of digital inventory up here. So that's when you see the creative flipping, so you're seeing multiple advertisers on the same board, and they have a certain amount of time on that board. And what we're able to understand as a media owner is we have the ad server data there, so we're able to understand exactly when, down to the second, an advertiser's creative was running on our digital screens. So those are the three knowns that we have control over and that we are using to then develop out different ways to capture this audience. And when you're thinking about the other side of it, so we have the information on the billboards and whatever other inventory types we have. So we have those three knowns, but really the unknown is going to be the mobile location data bit, because there are so many different ways that consumers are moving throughout the world. There are different ways that they're opting into certain apps. There are different types of panels that we have access to that may not be entirely representative of everyone who has a phone, who's not opting in, whatever other nuances there may be that I'm sure everyone in this room is really well equipped to understand. But the things that we're really thinking about as we think about the mobile location data panel is we understand, again, that this is where this specific board is. We're trying to understand the movement of the person who's in this car. And for our outdoor examples, so it could be that someone is driving in a car, it could be that they're walking down the road and they're exposed to one of our signs, it could be a number of different things. Compared to when we're thinking about our airport's assets, that's a very different use case where we understand, again, exactly where our display is. So this one is over a bag check. And what we are trying to get a better understanding of is how the audience within the airport is moving, because those who are in the airport are going to spend a longer time within the terminal, within baggage claim, whatever else. Everyone's had the experience of going to an airport and really spending a lot of time and having nothing to do but to stare at all the creatives that are flashing before you. So that's a little bit about how we are understanding our audiences, because again, as Clear Channel Outdoor, we're trying to get a better sense of who is being exposed to our inventory. And then from there, what we're really trying to do is understand the behaviors that are then associated to that audience. So Radar View is our audience planning tool, and it's really a productized version of everything that I was just talking about, where we first have to understand who is exposed to the out-of-home inventory. And that's really important in creating that baseline understanding of what devices we're able to capture. And then from there, we're able to do a number of really cool things where we either derive the behaviors from those who are exposed to our inventory. This can go down to specific campaigns so that we know for each advertiser who was exposed and when. But we're also able to overlay different attributes. So if we're looking for an audience of people who are B2B customers, because a cybersecurity company is going to want a very different audience than a local chicken shop that's looking for local residents to be able to view their board. So we're able to do a lot of overlaying here after we're able to understand who that exposed audience is. And then what we're able to do then is we are able to understand down to each individual panel level exactly what the attributes of that audience are. So thinking back to that example of Times Square, so if there's a specific board within Times Square, we want to understand all the people who are exposed to it. Are they more, are they older? Are they younger? Are they coming from out of town? Are they shoppers? Those are audience attributes that we're able to understand because we know who's being exposed to our inventory. And then this takes us to, so another fact about Clear Channel is we have been selling our inventory for almost 100 years, if not more. And with that comes a workforce that's also worked with Clear Channel for a very, very long time. So what happens then is as we are digitizing a lot of our inventory, a lot of our solutions for our sellers become more digital, is we are coming up with all these really cool ways for pre-sales and post-sales planning and capabilities. But we also have to make sure that we're addressing the audience in a way that's really, really tangible and visually representative of what's happening with the data that they necessarily aren't seeing. So in partnership with Cardo, we're able to build out this really cool platform where we're able to figure out exactly where all of our inventory is. And then with that, we're also able to address how many audience impressions are associated to each of those boards. There are a number of different ways that we can kind of segment this data, whether it's by specific geos, so state, DMA, CBSA, et cetera. We're also able to get it down to behavioral audiences. So again, going back to that use case of wanting to understand a specific audience, and I have a fun one for you next, but going down to the example of a specific audience that an advertiser might want, and being able to understand which boards are going to be the best ones to run their creatives on. Because what we're able to do here is by understanding the audiences that are passing across all of our displays, we're capturing audience information at the unit level, but we also understand it at the market level so that we're creating an index for those who are exposed to a specific piece of inventory compared to the market average. So that's really how we are kind of propagating this information to our sales force of this is the inventory that's really going to help you expand the scope of your plan for your buyers. So up here, you're seeing a screenshot of what we see within our Radar View instance. So the fun example that I'm showing you is, we're looking for wine buyers in New York, and I love wine, so this is why it's a fun example for me. So wine buyers in New York, and we're looking for the inventory that we have within Clear Channel that's going to over-index for people who purchase wine. And what that means is at these boards, we're seeing a higher rate of those who purchase wine in the New York DMA than in the New York DMA in general. And going back to the idea of understanding who our audience is, what you're seeing here is a really broad lens at all of those units right in here and seeing exactly what audiences that there are other affinities for. Because you might know that you want wine buyers in New York, but what's going to be helpful is also seeing other audiences that have overlap, because with this particular set of inventory that we're returning, what we're seeing is that there's also an affinity for airport lounge visitors, home furnishing buyers, and it's really important, again, going back to the context of how people are able to see ads in different channels, like digital or TV or radio. They also deliver audiences in a different way. And this is a different use case where in out of home, we're able to get just as granular with the audiences. It's just visualized in a little bit of a different way. And then zooming this out again, so this is the same plan where we're looking at wine buyers in New York. So we're looking for boards that are over-indexing for that audience. And we're zooming it out to get more in that visually friendly way that we're going to communicate this to our sellers. Because this audience planning tool right now is really an internal tool for our sellers to be able to have this conversation with their advertisers. Historically, what would happen with a wine merchant in particular is they would really look out to see, what boards are around my store. And it was a very proximity-driven play. And there's honestly nothing wrong with proximity-driven. I think it's still a very valid use case for out-of-home. But what this is able to help sellers do is help their clients in reaching their goals by showing them that they're not limited just to the 2 units that are right outside of their store. There's actually a whole other set of eyes that wouldn't necessarily pass by their store in particular, but would be driven to a purchase by being exposed in a different area. And from past studies that our team has conducted, we've definitely seen that for the right product, customers are usually inclined to travel a little bit to get it. So with that being understood, I think this is a really powerful visual and a helpful tool for our sellers. And then going a little bit more granularly, and this is the last example that I have. So another thing that we're really able to do, again, to help our sellers in understanding the inventory that's in here and also how to visualize it, is we're able to take some additional pieces of data that are found in the Clear Channel API. So we call this a photo sheet. So it's going to be that picture of the board exactly as it is in New York. And then we're able to pull up other pieces of information along with it. So saying this is a static bulletin, and static just means it's not a digital rotation, so the creative is on all the time. We're able to understand the weekly impressions associated to this board. And then this is all still in the context of wine buyers in New York, so it's just a little bit more drilled down. But yeah, I mean, this has been such a cool project to work on, especially with all the great capabilities with Cardo. So working on creating new use cases to visualize in this platform and really helping to make our data more ingestible by our sales teams has been a huge help. So if anyone has any questions, I don't know if I have time, but I'm happy to take some.